feeling about that, being my parliamentarian person? Is that okay if I can just pass it over to Peter for the physicality of being able to conduct the meeting in person?
You can do that, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So then we'll start the meeting and I will do that, okay? Are we ready to start, Patricia?
Yes, we are. Jamie from Prototypes in the row.
Mr. Angeli,
Present.
Mr. Grabsky, Mr. Ladd, Mr. Marshall, Ms. Scott,
She called me and she will not be here.
Mr. Partington, yes,
Present, yes.
Mr. Walters,
Here.
Mr. Zeltman,
Here.
and Chair Mamano.
Present.
You have a quorum?
Okay, before we start the approval of the agenda, I'd like to, I don't know if I need to make a motion, but I would like to ask Vice Chair Peter Partington to conduct the meeting, and I will participate remotely. So unless anyone has any objection to that, that's what we will do. Do I hear any objection?
Do we need a motion for that, Roosevelt?
No.
We do not need a motion, Mary. So,
All right. So Peter, thank you. You may please continue to run the meeting.
welcome. So the first item on the agenda, we've done the roll call. First item is approval of today's agenda for
Chair,
November the 1st.
I move that we approve as written.
Moved by Roosevelt. And second, please.
Second.
Second by Jerry. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? That's that taken care of. Next item is approval of the minutes for October the 4th. Any additions, changes, etc.? Yes. Ralph?
Yes, I had sent an email to be circulated to the committee in accordance with the Florida State Sunshine laws. The item that was omitted from the agenda that occurred between 2:45 p.m. through 2:48 p.m. During the meeting on October 4th, 2021. And I'll just read you what I read, and I think it's very important in the sense that I've been trying to get the storm drainage systems working properly under the thought that it had the proper exfiltration, slotted pipe, exfiltration rock, and fabric. Come to find out this year that it didn't. It was just a plain holding tank. These were in Imperial Point community, and so that's why I was bird dogging it as one of their directors. So my discussion that I took off the video basically said the following, and I think it's important because this is a major find with all the flooding and everything in the various communities throughout the city. And I think that it deserves to be included in the minutes. This discussion concerns the city's existing stormwater holding tanks. I previously discussed with Dr. Nancy Gassman about Imperial Point community tanks. I discussed with Dr. Nancy Gassman about Imperial Point community tanks needing to have these ineffective holding tanks retrofitted with slotted pipe, exfiltration gravel, and fabric to convert them into exfiltration stormwater drainage systems to remove the street flooding and standing water. Omar Casillan indicated the city is currently converting these stormwater holding tanks into exfiltration tanks to alleviate the street flooding in the Rio Vista community. That is, important, even though it's short and sweet. It's,
So Ralph, where did this come up? Where did you bring this up? I do remember it.
yeah, it was at the time, it was at 2:45.
Well, yeah, we have to insert it into the minutes.
Right. And I just,
So where would that go? Where were we talking about this?
I think it was right after, let me see if I can find this. It was right after Mr. Dodd.
So what page are you on?
I'm on page 6.
Page 6. So 2 paragraphs start Mr. Dodd. And then you're suggesting an insertion after the
Yeah, in the middle of the
paragraph
page.
there.
Right, I just, on page 6, right after the second Mr. Dodd thing, I think that's,
So Omar, did you want to say something?
So in Rio Vista, we didn't have any holding tanks. We just put extra filtration trench, but it goes to the canal. It's not going to any tank. So we're not converting anything. We're just adding that.
okay.
So that's.
Because I had been really, I guess since it's about 8 years, 6 to 8 years, we've had these tanks in Imperial Point. And Dr. Nancy Gassman said that they're holding tanks, not exfiltration type tanks.
So
So
Ralph,
this is what I brought up.
can we add after the third paragraph starts Mr. Dodd, can we add another paragraph in there that says, and wing this, Mr. Zeltman raised the question of the holding tanks that are installed in the Imperial Point neighborhood and informed the committee that slotted exfiltration pipes were superior and the holding tanks should be replaced. Does that capture it?
Well, there were no exfiltration pipes.
No, you're suggesting that the holding tanks need to be replaced by.
Well, need to be retrofitted,
Correct.
pouring into the concrete holding tank structure.
Okay.
And then with that, add the slotted pipe and then the exfiltration rock and then the fabric around that to convert it into an exfiltration stormwater drainage.
Let me try this. So could it say, Mr. Zeltman raised the question of Imperial Point neighborhood stormwater drainage having holding tanks and suggested that these be retrofitted with slotted pipe for exfiltration.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah,
Roosevelt?
let me just make sure I'm clear. What you read there is that's missing from the minutes,
Yes,
and the minutes would be incorrect if it wasn't added.
that's correct.
My memory is, do you remember
I
that,
remember
Omar, as
something
well?
about it, but
Do you remember what Ralph said? I remember what Ralph is saying being discussed. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember asking about it, if we were doing that in the city. That's what you asked,
Yeah.
if we had any exfiltration trenches. And
Yeah, I was just bringing the point up about the holding tanks. And I think you were saying that, and maybe I misinterpreted your response, but I thought, yes, we are retrofitting those in.
No, I just said Rio Vista with adding that feature to Rio Vista.
Okay.
So we need to capture what Omar said as well.
Yes, he's just saying, yeah,
So
because that was part of the
in
conversation.
addition to what I said, maybe we should add, Mr. Castellon informed the committee that slotted exfiltration pipes were being installed in the Rio Vista neighborhood.
Right.
Slotted exfiltration pipes. So, sorry, did the recording secretary get all that?
No.
It's online. She's online, so she's.
Oh, she's online.
Yes.
So we can't have that readily read back then?
No, I
Okay.
could not.
So let me say it one more time. Mr. Zeltman raised the issue of the stormwater drainage for Imperial Point neighborhood, which is holding tanks, and informed the committee that these should be retrofitted with slotted pipes for exfiltration. Mr. Castellan informed the committee that slotted pipes were currently being installed in the Rio Vista neighborhood. Sound all right to everybody? If that's so, I'd entertain a motion to add that to the minutes.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Roosevelt, second by Ralph. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so any other changes, etc. to the minutes? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve the minutes
Mr. Chair.
for October the 4th. Moved by Roosevelt,
Move to accept the minutes with the corrections.
move, accept the minutes with the correction. Moved by Roosevelt, second please. Seconded by Shane. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And now we move to, public comments. We'll take at each item. That's correct, Marilyn, I believe.
Yes.
So we can move on to old business. Continue discussion about the joint workshop and communication to the city commission. Marilyn, do you want to?
Yes,
weigh in on
Peter. I would like to ask if anybody was listening to the commission meeting where we sent them our last our communication.
this? Yes, I was, Marilyn.
Okay, so I will say that they appeared a little befuddled and confused. And this was despite the fact that I sent them a nice memorandum describing the context for our request. Nevertheless, I don't think anybody read that memo. And essentially what they said to the bottom line, and you weigh in here, Peter, if you saw it differently, was they said, didn't we say we were going to do that? And they also said to the person representing the city manager's office, I think it was one of the deputies, well, Chris, why don't you get on working on this? And that was where they left it. And that was what my report would be on it. Did you see anything differently, Peter, or you want to report it differently?
I think I saw exactly that, except to say there seemed to be unanimity that they wanted the ITF to continue, and they thought that it was doing valuable work.
Okay, so I think the next thing we need to do is we need to have the city manager come to the December meeting and advise us on how he's progressing on putting together a new ordinance for the continuation of some form of this committee, either as a committee or an advisory board. And there's a difference. If it's a committee and not an advisory board, it has a different rules governing it. And if it is an advisory board, anybody who's on this board cannot be on another board. But if it's a committee, you can be on a committee and a board. So there's some difference between the advisory boards and the committees. And I leave that up to the judgment of the commission on how they want to structure it. But I think what we need to do is we need to get the city manager here and say, okay, what progress have you gotten so far? December would be a good time to talk to him because he's got to get it on a January agenda, and they've got to vote on it before February. So I think that, that would be the way that we would want to proceed. That would be the way I would suggest we proceed. And I'm open to any other suggestions.
Roosevelt?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to go back to the workshop. And I remember I don't know whether we were virtual or at this particular table, when we was talking about the 3P situation. And the one thing that we said as a group, that the city should maintain the control of the committee to include the financing portion of it. But when at the workshop, that wasn't agreed to. In fact, the commissioner,
Rightus?
whatever her name is, said that that wasn't possible. And I'd like to know what our position is on it now.
Roosevelt, can I try and get my hands around that?
Okay.
She said specifically, and she repeated it at the last commission meeting, that she wanted us specifically to weigh in on the financial arrangements of the P3, whatever those may be, since we don't know what they are, since we're still in the cone of silence. But she definitely wanted us to weigh in on it, not weigh in on it, but specifically to weigh in it. She was looking for some input from us on how we felt about the finances of the proposal. So just a little clarification there of her position.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, Marilyn. but
Yeah.
We would have to have a new resolution in effect and approved by the commission in order to continue work past February of next year. Is that correct?
That is my understanding, yes.
So we need to, basically, we need to ask the city manager how he proposes to continue the existence of the ITF beyond beyond February of 2022, correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
So how do we communicate that to the city manager?
We
Alan, something that you can take on?
I believe in my discussion with them, we will be putting together a resolution to extend the task force and whatever modifications may be required within that for a period of time. I think right now, it shouldn't be very hard for us to do. We already have a working draft based on the previous versions. But just if there's going to be changes in the structure or anything in there, that's the discussion we need to have with the city manager.
So that's on your radar and the radar of the city manager's office as far as you're aware, correct?
Yes.
So we can probably, at this point, we can probably leave that to be progressed by you, just noting the fact that, as I said, absent that resolution, legally, we cannot continue past February next year. So
Correct. And our intention would be to get it into the December or first meeting in January, so that you have plenty of time to work through any details or changes that the commission may desire as they debate it.
Well, it's absolutely clear, again, I've said this, but they wanted us to continue. Exactly what with is far less clear.
And I believe one of the points that was raised was also, instead of doing a 1-year period, to do something a little bit longer, possibly 3 years.
Yeah.
As a period. So, that's one of those changes that would be incorporated in the language.
A longer time frame was thrown around. I do remember that. Marilyn, under this agenda item, anything else you want to bring up here?
No, I think that if Alan is already communicating with the city manager and the city attorney on a possible resolution, then I don't know that we necessarily have to have them come to the December meeting just to give to tell us anything about it, only just to give us a progress report. How are we doing? How are they doing in terms of getting the resolution to the commission in time? That's all we would need.
Okay, now I did have something to bring up under this and contained with the agenda package. And I think Marilyn circulated by Simi was a copy of a review of a proposed development on the beach, Bayshore Hotel.
Yeah, that's on the agenda. Isn't that on the agenda further down? No, I don't see it.
No.
All right, yeah.
chronologically, in the way the agenda is put together, it appears at the end of the minutes. So I thought the intention there was to discuss this if necessary under this continuing discussion item, but that wasn't your intention?
No,
Mary?
no, that would be fine. That would be fine. I would be happy to do that now if you want me to.
Yeah, yes, if you have things to say on it, yes.
Yes,
please.
I do. I do have things to say about it. And I want to make sure that everybody got a copy of it, and hopefully we had a chance to look at it. And the reason I wanted you to see it is because this is the very latest letter that is being produced under the ordinance for development review. And these new letters are significantly better than the previous letters, even from just a year ago, in that they are, I think, much more comprehensive. But they show you clearly that they are only doing capacity, not condition. Even though it says in one of the headings, it says condition and capacity, it clearly indicates that they are doing capacity, and they're doing it quite well and quite comprehensively. They're doing the capacity of the water system, they're doing the capacity of the sewer system, and under sewers, they're doing the capacity of the pump stations as well. So, you know, they're doing a very good job, but they're not taking into account the considerations of condition, as we've been talking about for like 6, 7, 8 months now. So I wanted to ask, I think Igor is with us. And I wanted to ask him, when he's doing these capacity letters and he looks at the wastewater system, he looks and sees if there's some improvement that needs to be made to the pipe, which in this case, there was a significant improvement that needed to be made to the pipe. And the developer was going to make that pipe improvement, but it was an improvement in capacity so that the pipe would be able to carry the flow. And then he went up to the pump station, the nearest pump station, and he analyzed that, and he saw that this additional flow plus all of the committed flows would not impact the pump station. The pump station would run quite well. But the question I have for him is, did he look any further? And did he go and follow the route of that effluent all the way to the sewage treatment plant and see if in fact it impacted one of the legs of the system that was at high risk, and or one of the pump stations that is currently struggling to maintain its efficiency? So I wanted to ask that question of Igor, and that's why I asked him to be at this meeting today. That's my question to the staff, is when they.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, Igor.
Oh,
Igor, before you start to answer that, I agree with what you said, Marilyn, but going back to our joint meeting, it's clear to me that the city attorney does not want any discussion of condition to explicitly travel with any one development application, because he believes it will muddy the waters legally.
You are probably expressing the council's office correctly. He was adamant about this.
Yeah.
And I'm not bringing this up from the perspective of should it have been in this particular document. I brought it up from the perspective of this is the document that we have, and this is the analysis that's done. But I wanted to know is if the staff actually looked further than this, and could we, in some way that was acceptable to the council, indicate that yes, everything we've reviewed here is capacity-wise okay, but at some point we need to get the information to the commission that yes, the capacity letter is correct and what is required by the ordinance, but somehow they have to know that by approving this particular development and other developments, that they are putting stress on the system. And this is what we've been talking about for 6 months. So I did not want to ask the staff to change this letter in any way, because this is a good letter on capacity. It's a very good letter on capacity. But I wanted to ask Igor if he actually himself takes a look further down and notes and reports to somebody that there is a condition problem further down the line. That I'm just asking for information at this point.
Igor?
Okay, well, it's kind of a big question. You are correct. In these letters, it's called the capacity letter, and we basically concentrate on capacities. We do because the condition of the pipe, it is also looked at, but it's kind of a separate issue because the condition is our, if there's an issue with the condition, it's our internal issue. It's a maintenance. And it has nothing to do with the developer or the client because they're not responsible for that. So we mainly stick to the things that the developer would be responsible for if there is a capacity issue, not condition. Whether or not there is a condition issue down the line, not that I know of, because it's analyzed all the way up to the pump station and including the pump station. And the capacity is fine. The condition is also, it's a big pump station with very three powerful pumps. And I think I should elaborate on something. Like, for example, if you are planning on adding some amount of flow to the wastewater flow, the way it affects the pump station, it really doesn't put that much strain or stress on the pipes down the line because it's still the same flow and the same pressure which going through these pipes. The only thing that changes is time of pumping because these pumps are, they pump intermittently. So while we're adding a few minutes of pumping to these pumps, that's all there is to it. There is no extra pressure. There is no increase in flow rate. So,
Okay, Ralph?
or straight down the line, no, we're not.
I would say I would agree with what he's saying but I have a concern that if it's just a few minutes, I would agree with you, but I think the amount of flows that have been indicated coming into George C. Lomar plant has been like up into 30%. So that reflection is like 30% more runtime. That would have a significant detrimental impact on the pipes because there's still sand in the system that's still eroding, on the inside of the pipe. Which
Can I
brings,
say something?
and let me just, which brings up another sub question is the city continuing to be aggressive in their repair replacement of the sanitary sewer gravity mains that are still broken and allowing the groundwater and sand to intrude eventually through the force mains into the George T. Lomar wastewater treatment plant?
You want to answer again, Igor, and then Charlie wants to say something. Did the record reflect that Charlie joined the meeting? Please, I don't know what time he joined. But
Yes, I see him there.
Later than I should have.
who else?
I came in.
Okay, Shane came in late as well. So, Igor, anything you want to say to Ralph's question?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say that for this particular project, we're adding, well, not we're, the project would add only about 24 minutes of pumping a day, per day on average. So we're talking fairly small increase.
Yeah, Igor, I'm not concerned about this particular project from the perspective of there's not enough capacity. I mean, this project is not the straw that breaks the camel's back. What I'm concerned about and trying to find a way to describe this is that we have been trying for quite some time to develop a methodology absent going through the ordinance, put the ordinance aside, but to bring to the commission's attention, either through a staff report or some other kind of report, that yes, these capacity letters were focused on the capacity of this particular project on this particular infrastructure, but when you add it down the line, it impacts an area of the infrastructure that needs improvement, that's scheduled for repair and replacement. And I'm just was wondering, when you did this letter, did you actually look further down the line? And I know the pump rate is going to be constant. So it's not a question of, are you going to increase the pump rate on other parts of the system? Although I'm not an engineer and I don't really know that that's true. But I wanted to know if this effluent, in order to get to the treatment plant, impacts one of those at-risk legs of the wastewater system. And is that something that you focus on at all? Or is that just not part of this particular process that you go through? Does some other portion of the organization look at those concerns and issues? Maybe that's an Alan question. Maybe that's not a you question.
So Igor, the question basically is, how far do you go tracing the flows? Because you go further than the immediately adjoining pipes. So can you answer that?
Well, we go from all the way from the proposed development to the gravity pipes to the pump station. The pump station essentially pumps it to the wastewater treatment plant. So it's the whole path, and we normally look at that, and if there's any issues, we address it in the letter.
So if that's true, there's a good chance that flow goes onto a pipe or a length that is rated at high risk. But we've been here before. Charlie, and then Roosevelt.
Yeah, I was told in another meeting or another discussion that an increase in the flow due to with the sand that's in the system through the cracked clay pipes actually improved the situation on the steel versus a lower flow where the sand had more of a prospect of abrading the bottom of those steel pipes. Did the person that tell me that, were they nuts, or is there some credence to that?
Alan?
So what we're talking about is the capacity of the overall system to transfer the effluent, which is basically, the amount of flow is a product of the pressure that you're applying, the size of the pipe, the area of it, and the velocity that it's moving through. So because the pressure is pretty much constant coming out of the pumps, the area doesn't change. What really changes is the velocity, the speed that it's moving through. As water is moving faster, anything is moving faster, it's less settling of sand or things to the bottom of the pipe. It moves faster. So in essence, it does improve the ability to capture, to contain those sand particles or other particles and keep moving through the pipe. Now, and we do look at, whenever you have high rainfall, I&I situations, you see a peak in the volume that is going through the pipes, which again, you'll see a little bit of an increase in the pressures. Really, it's that velocity, that flow that's going through the system that is where you see the main difference, which is why we have a permitted capacity at the plant of only a certain amount, 48 mgd, I believe it is. But you will see peaks that will go above that as the velocity is flowing through. And the system is designed to absorb those short peak flows going into the system and into the plant.
Roosevelt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It would seem to me, well, first, the city attorneys don't want to entertain this. The commission is not going to obtain it, because they're going to listen to the attorney. And it seems that what we need is a two-path system. One will be to deal with staff, and the other will be to make a recommendation as to what or accept what's already in the letter when someone is applying for an application. So my suggestion is that we make those two suggestions to the commission, not that we don't trust staff, but it just makes it better when we can say what we told you on November 1st. We mentioned this and it haven't been done, and this is 2 years later. But I don't think anything that we see sitting around this table is going to change the commissioner or the attorney mind. That's just my opinion.
So I tend to agree with you. And in reading over the minutes from last meeting, I was struck by Charlie's comment or suggestion that periodically staff should create a report of condition issues that have been identified as an alternative route to keep condition to the forefront of people's minds. There should be some regular reporting and updating of all the work that has been done and the latest state of knowledge of the condition of our various piped infrastructure. So I don't know if, well, obviously, Charlie, I hope you agree with that. I thought that was a good idea.
I think it is too.
I think it's a great backhanded way to try to have a handle on where the hotspots are. And it's the commission, there's one way or another for people to know if there's a project planned in an area where we have problems.
Alan? That's something you can look into?
I think it's something we can talk about, but when you're talking about doing a condition analysis system, there is a cost associated with doing that. And if we're doing it every year, there's a very significant cost and a time involved with preparing that type of analysis. So I think you need to be very, very specific on what it is your expectations would be out of an annual report, because we're always going to be going and doing soft digs and evaluating the pipes every year for the entire system. So I think it's worthy of greater discussion to make sure that the expectations are realistic and achievable, that we can produce what you are wanting to give you the results, the information that you're looking for.
Charlie?
Wouldn't it be possible to put together a top 10? I mean, we have the Hazen report, we have the progress we've made, we get the updates on the projects. I don't think it would take a lot of work to figure out the 10 worst areas we have left in our system.
That is captured in the utility strategic master plan that was released a few years ago, where they did identify the top at most risk pipes within the force main system.
Yes, but I think the committee's point of view is that in and of itself has been updated by Hazen Sawyer, and as you know, have categorized things into the three categories: high risk, medium risk, and low risk. And then we also heard from somebody that as taps are done, etc., you gain further knowledge of the actual state of that pipe. So what this committee is asking for is that on a fairly regular basis, the current state of the art of what we know about condition, and even if you report, say, every 6 months, and nothing as far as you're concerned has changed from 6 months ago, then you would just basically say that. And the manager sends a number of memos to the commission under the heading of commission memos that are informative. And what I personally am envisioning is that such a commission memo should go regularly. Maybe we see the draft of it first. And it says, this is where we stand with our infrastructure. We've got X 100 feet in a high risk category, and the next time it may be less than X, hopefully. But if this is not kept to the forefront, then future commissions, I've got no doubt this current commission, this is well on their radar, but future commissions more pressing things come along. What we're grasping at is something to keep this issue alive in whatever commission is around at the time. Charlie, anything else to add to that?
Yeah, like I said, what's the top 10? Where are our top 10 problem areas? Okay, is it the beach? Is it, a specific part of the beach? It's in the report. It's just that the report is so voluminous that even as committee members, I don't think we could sit here and tell it off the top of our heads what they are. So a memo every quarter or something to say, hey, this is the current top 10 and the status on upgrades, and make it simpler that somebody can comprehend it, because the reports that we see, it takes a lot of time to work your way through that and understand it every month, that I don't think a commissioner is going to do that. But if we just had the top 10 problem areas in the progress, so, number 1 on the top 10 was the 48-inch line. Check, done. Okay, what's the newest, worst problem we have? I don't know the answer. Does anybody know the answer? The newest, worst problem we have?
I don't know the answer either. And I think, I think what I'm trying to, what we're all trying to accomplish is just exactly what Charlie said, is to make sure that there is some continued awareness on the part of the commission of the progress or lack thereof that we are making. We also talked a little bit last month about using some portion of the asset management plan, which is a really continuous ongoing review of the condition of the infrastructure, somehow adapting that to be part of this purpose. So I think we're pretty much all in agreement that, we are never going to make any changes to the ordinance. The ordinance is as it is. And given that ordinance, I think that the staff is doing a marvelous job on implementing the requirements of the ordinance in terms of capacity. So again, this is like a separate way of trying to, and we're never going to solve it. We're probably not going to solve it today. But I think if we stop talking about it and stop trying to figure out how to do it, then all of that discussion that we had, and even the commission's concern about condition, we're not actually fulfilling one of our chief purposes. So I think, again, I just brought that letter to your attention so that you can see the current state of the art of the review versus underneath the current ordinance, which is an improvement over how it was in the past. Wouldn't you say, Charlie? I mean, you've seen the evolution of these letters.
Sure.
Alan, can you, unless you had something burning to add to that, can you put some thought to that idea?
Yes, and I think what you really was, what is our priorities when it comes to these projects in the near term and the longer term? And a lot of that is captured in the capital improvements program, where we have identified priorities and we put resources towards it, or you will see projects that are not fully funded yet, but need to be. So I think that kind of ties in with this.
But people, I'm sorry, but people were saying that 10 years ago, and look what happened. So something else needs to be added. Now, I'm sorry to interrupt this portion of the discussion. We'll come back to it. But we have Linda Short with us, Deputy Director of Finance, and you're here to answer some specific questions. If we can, with the committee's agreement, if we can ask Linda, because she has to leave, she can only give us a few minutes of her time.
Move in order.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Hi, good afternoon, committee members. Linda Short. I received an email from Maryland talking about the balance that's left in the CIP fund for basically projects that are closed out administratively. So I'm here to explain the process and talk about what balances are available. So a few years ago, we used to close out projects, finance. When I say we, finance when the project was end of life and the project, whatever the CIP project that was funded came online. If there were any balances left over, finance used to administratively close it and put those balances in fund balance. About 2 years ago, we changed that process. We no longer close out things administratively. It's only closed out through the budget process now. And if we do close out things administratively, they're very small dollar amounts, things under $1,000. So these are for projects that are substantially complete. Everything is done, but there's $20 left over or $10 left over. So in the last year, in 2021, we closed out about $1,800 worth of those projects. And there were like 18 projects or 19 projects that had small dollar amounts, pennies, dollars here. And it turned out to be about $1,800 total that we closed out. So I wanted to explain that the process changed where we no longer administratively close out large dollar amounts anymore. Everything that's closed out from a CIP that's funded through the CIP is closed out through the CIP process, meaning that the dollars are deappropriated and reappropriated to a future project or a current project that's ongoing. And so there are really no substantial dollar amounts sitting in those fund balances anymore. And like I said, that process changed about 2 years ago. Does that answer your question, Marilyn?
Actually, it's going a ways towards answering it. So there is no longer any unfunded balance fund sitting somewhere. Everything that gets closed out, the money goes back into that particular fund for reallocation?
That's correct, yes.
So at any given time, there is some amount of money sitting in one of those funds that is in the process of being reallocated. I mean, you can't obviously make a dollar for dollar reallocation.
Right, so when a project is closed out, so if it's closed out through the budget process, it is a dollar for dollar allocation to whatever project you're putting it towards. When we administratively close those smaller dollar amounts, you're right, those just fall back to fund balance. But I was trying to show you the magnitude of how much that was. In 2021, it was $1,800. So that's not a substantial amount. Everything now that is closed out that has any kind of dollar value, any kind of large substantial amounts are closed out through the budget process, meaning we take it from the project that we had it in and we reallocate it dollar for dollar to a different project, whatever the project that's approved by commission. So that's how that's done now. Okay.
All right. Yes, this is new, as you say. This has just happened recently. So this helps me understand the CIP process much better, and I appreciate it that you came and told us this.
No problem, not at all. Okay.
Thank you.
You have a question?
You have a question for me?
No, I got a lot of questions, but I'm not gonna answer, I'm not gonna ask you any of them.
Why not? I love questions.
I'm at a wait and see right now.
Okay.
And you know, when I got something to put my hand on, I come talk to you.
Absolutely. I'm on the 6th floor, and you guys can feel free to reach out to me at any time. The Public Works team has my information and can contact me anytime you guys have any questions about what we have in the finances. Okay.
So Linda, you know, frequently on agendas, there are budget amendments with a number of items on. Is that part of this process of reallocating balances, etc.?
Yes. That's
So
correct.
that's the purpose of those quite extensive, sometimes agenda items.
That is
Money
correct.
being moved where it's going to be
Change
not
order.
needed
Mhm.
to somewhere that it is needed.
That is correct.
And I think it's important when we're talking about how we are identifying priorities, sometimes we will have urgent needs come up that are not funded, and we will have to take money and move it from one project into a more urgent priority project in order to complete it first. So
Yeah.
again, that's, the CIP really does reflect our priorities as we have them right now. And when we make those changes to an unforeseen project, something comes up, it's because there isn't a balance anymore. So we have to take it from one project and put it into something that can't wait for the next year or a future funding cycle.
Anything else for Linda?
You have a tracking system for that, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Linda.
All right.
Thank you. Now, I'd like to go back to, still on old business number 1. I kind of cut off Alan a bit. Is there anything else you wanted to say on that, Alan? I did have one very specific question to ask myself.
But I think the question is still valid, and if it's saying, trying to identify what are the priorities that we are working on, every 6 months or 1 year. Hopefully we're not jumping around that much, but putting together a memorandum and laying out those priorities projects is something that we can probably do pretty easily. Because we really try to focus on the force mains that we think need to be replaced first. What the REITs report or conditions tell us we need to work on. Those are the projects that are funded in this year and that we're working on. So laying out those priority projects, showing that the funding is aligned with our priorities and what we see as the next batch of projects coming up is something we can do for you. And maybe that'll provide a little bit more clarity as to what we're working on and what we see for the future for those highest at-risk areas.
Yeah, Alan, can I just follow up on that? I think that's a very good idea. I think we're getting close here. I agree with Charlie. When you see it in the CIP, you just see it in this unfathomable chart that nobody focuses on. But if that could be accompanied by, say, a report, a specific report saying, looking at the CIP projects under water and sewer, you can see that the priority is the pump station here or the at-risk pipes here or yada, yada, yada. And just as a sort of a narrative, maybe what we need is just a narrative describing the priorities in the CIP. Just food for thought.
Right. Because they're related. And I think that's pretty easy for us to do. They were put in there for a reason and just kind of showing you what we're doing and why we're doing it it's already in there. Just pulling it all together and giving you a document that you can interpret and understand pretty easily.
With a summary of the overall picture, not just a description of what's in there, but with a summary of the overall picture and the progress we're making towards resolving some of the major problems.
Yeah, the top 10 problems.
Yeah, right, there you go.
Not just what we're doing, but why we're doing it.
Yeah.
Alan, what or how do you, when you had 10 top and you did 3 of them, that's 7, how do other top 10s get on the list without having a company come out and charge us a few $1 million and look and tell us what is wrong?
Well, a lot of it comes from our operations division that is operating and maintaining the system every day. And they will tell you that we're having a lot of problems with a certain part of the system. We've had breaks, so we can look at the historic trend and they know which areas are having issues. Where we have leaking valves, it's an indicator. There's a lot of other indicators they can look at. They have the SCADA system that they can read a lot of conditions and different sensors on things. So they tell us where we have priorities for when something breaks suddenly and we need to prioritize one project over another. But it's a back and forth discussion with them, with the engineers that we have, and then with a number of consultants who will advise us on the projects as well.
And we are working on prevention as well as intervention, right?
I would hope so, yes.
That's my concern is not go out and fix it. Let's go out and stop it from breaking.
Yes.
And if we do that, I think we'll save a whole lot of money.
Okay. I have a specific question for Igor. I saw reference in this review of this development to Manual of Practice 60 of ASCE. Did you used to use that, Igor? You still there, Igor?
Yes, I am.
Did you hear what I said? My question. You reference Manual of Practice 60 of the ASCE and a recommended standard bid. Have you always been using that?
Yeah, we've been using that for a long time.
Okay, that's the first time I've noticed that. That's all.
Yeah, it's been part of our letters for
American Society.
as I can remember.
Now, one other thing for me under this follow-up was what came up about the funding of infrastructure, Marilyn, and
Yeah.
the chairman of the Budget Advisory Board having an approach which we liked, and the idea of having him or somebody talk to us about the approach that they saw to the future funding of infrastructure. So I said that.
Yes, I have sent several inquiries to the chairperson of that board, asking him to please explain it more fully and to share his the group's thoughts, but I have not gotten any response. Michael, maybe you know, maybe you can speak to that? Or was it Shane who was on the committee? Michael or Shane?
No, yeah, no. Hi, Marilyn, it's Michael. I was at the last budget advisory meeting, and Chair Donaldson mentioned, we talked about this briefly, and
You still there, Michael? I think we lost you, Michael.
can you hear me now? All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Chair Donaldson had told us at the last meeting that the feedback he got from city administration or perhaps the attorney's office was that they wouldn't be able to do that. The idea he mentioned wasn't something that they could pursue.
Really?
Right. Yeah.
The idea was that there be a line item in the
Right.
letter that goes out to people proposing the budget, showing an ad valorem tax amount for infrastructure. Have I summarized that correctly, Marilyn?
I believe from what little I know about it, I think that was the proposal, that he break out, that we were somehow being able to break out of the budget a portion of it that went towards infrastructure, as opposed to, let's say, operating or police or whatever. And I don't see, I mean, I'm sure he pushed for it as hard as he could, the way we pushed for our issues as hard as we can. I don't understand why it can't be done, but this goes to the issue of, should you be budgeting specifically for infrastructure, or is infrastructure what's left after you finish paying for fire and police? And I'm disappointed that Budget Advisory Board is not going to be able to pursue this more, more aggressively. Actually, having been shut down, as Michael says.
And I'm disappointed as well, because going back to first principles, one of the first recommendations of the original ITF was that somewhere between 7 to 10% of the city's operating budget at any given time be devoted to city's infrastructure needs that were not otherwise financed through enterprise funds. So from what Michael's saying, we're kind of back to square one, because the commission, when we met with them jointly, they hung their hat on what Chair Donaldson was saying. So it is disappointing.
Yeah.
Okay, we press on.
Did you have a comment, Mr. Corbyn, under this? You had your hand up. You don't want to comment.
Yeah,
on
I've
this.
got some comments I want to make about this issue.
On this specifically on this issue, where we're on the issue of the follow-up to the meeting that we had with the City Commission a couple of months ago.
Yes, absolutely, I do. All right, so city concrete lined iron sewer pipes that failed, causing the 250 million gallon sewer spill, was caused by sand abrasion. Sand wore down the bottoms of the pipes until there was nothing left. Sand got into the pipes through inflow and infiltration, which is a fancy term for broken clay pipes that feed into the force mains that broke. The I&I has not been properly addressed, so there is still sand in the force main, which will destroy the new pipes just installed. The city chose to use HDPE pipe, which is made of plastic. This will not hold up to the current sand abrasion. To be clear, there should not be any I&I in sewer systems. It ruins pipes and it is wasteful to process rainwater as sewer.
Point of order, Mr. Chair, that is
Yeah.
not on point to the item on the agenda. He can, I would hope that he would reserve those comments to the appropriate point in the agenda so we could get going. Keep the meeting moving.
Well,
I can give you another minute and a half.
okay, yeah,
on this, but
another
keep
minute should be
Keep
fine.
it specifically to, we're mainly concentrating on the issues of condition and funding of infrastructure.
Okay, yeah,
That was the whole main thrust of our meeting with the city commission.
yeah, I think we're wasting more time talking about what we should be talking about than just letting me do my quick little speech. So,
I'll give you another minute and a half. Please proceed.
okay, good. The I&I has not been properly addressed, so there's still sand in the force main, which will destroy the new pipes just installed. City chose to use plastic pipes. They'll not hold up to the sand abrasion. As members of the committee have been saying for around 5 years, we need to fix the sewer pipes that let in sand and rainwater. Considering there's still sand in the sewer line, ceramic epoxy lined iron pipes should have been used on the 7-mile sewer line project instead of plastic. Another big issue is the new sewer line went down 60 feet to get under a bridge foundation. Sand will settle at this low spot and it will cause big problems in the future. The city needs to fix the I&I problem now. If you have to raise taxes to keep sewer out of city rivers, canals, and beaches, then do it. Same thing with giving us clean, not green or yellow city tap water. There is just one more point with the P3 that you guys were
Well, we're going
talking
to come
about.
to that.
Okay.
That's
I'll talk
another
to that
item.
later on.
But
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you very
before
much.
you sit down, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I've got a question for you.
Sure.
The source of your information.
The source of your information.
Oh, it's facts. I mean, we
Okay,
use
I'm not
HP
saying they're not facts.
Which,
Where can
what are
I
we
find,
talking
where can I
about?
find those facts?
You have to do a lot of research. That's
That's
part of your
okay.
job. What specifically are you interested in?
Well, you were saying what the city did or did not do.
They used HPDE pipes, plastic
Okay.
pipes.
And all I'm.
They did not fix the sand infiltration. Continue.
And all I'm asking you is for you to have those things as facts, where did you gather your information from?
It's a fact that there is still a big influent infiltration problem in our, it is what caused
Okay.
the sewer line.
And we
break.
are spending a lot of money.
Okay.
I do happen to know that on I&I for certain. Thank you. I know you're here for mainly for
Apparently not
another
enough,
meeting.
but-
Thank you. Anything else on this agenda item for one continued discussion about joint workshop? If not, we'll move on. Hearing nothing else. Ralph?
Bring something out, it may not be pertinent to this, maybe it's new business, but we did receive a copy from the city attorney. That was, it was a memo to the commission, mayor and commission regarding like a conflict of interest or something.
Yeah.
I was curious on what brought that up, if that's appropriate to talk about it at this time.
It's not.
Okay. New business.
So I honestly do not know exactly what you're talking about. In the absence of somebody else, I would accept Mr. Walter's advice that it's not appropriate to discuss this.
Definitely new business.
Excuse me?
Did it come out from
Definitely new business.
under your letterhead?
I sent the email to you guys.
Yes.
Yes.
I know what I'm talking about. I just, like I said, I didn't know if it's old business or new business, but if it's new business, I'll wait. Until
Yeah,
the business.
it's new business. Okay, so we're moving on to update on proposed pilot study at Prospect, Wellfield, and Five Ash Water Park. And we have extensive now reports on that. Does anyone from staff want to introduce this subject? Probably be an Abby.
For the Wellfield,
Yes, we have these two reports now, one by, is it CH A, that's basically
It's Reese.
Reese. And well, the other one is Chen Moore, I think. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
Um,
So which one do you want to?
well, talk about the CHA Reese one first, please.
So that's the wellfield report.
Yes.
So this wellfield report has three phases. Phase number one, where they do a historical data analysis of the water on the aquifer and look at all the water that is present on those wells. Phase number two is to actually go into the wells and they take a close look at each well and stick a camera on there and make recommendations to the third phase, which will be either cleaning the wells, broaching the wells, whatever happens, that needs to be done according to the second phase. So this report is the first phase of that. So the next phase.
And what I saw as a major conclusion from that was that none of the current wells provided a source of water that did not have a high color unit count. That's correct.
35 to 50 CUs.
Yeah.
Some wells are better than others. So what this looks at is at the whole picture of the water that you're gonna have coming through those wells.
So and do the commission have to approve proceeding to stage 2?
Yeah, no, that's task orders, and those are gonna start. I mean, we're waiting for the second phase to get going.
And tell me again, the scope of phase 2?
Phase 2 is where they're gonna go down to a well, to each well, look at it with the camera and investigate everything that is going on that well.
For the purpose of what?
With the purpose of, for instance, if the well is contaminated with bacteria, is thus contributing to the color, then they will find that out.
I see. Ralph?
And also the production zone of the well, if it's collapsed.
Correct.
Also in the production area, if it's, if they notice a strand of iron that's in there that could obviously produce color.
Or if the well is damaged, it's cracked, all those things, all that is looking based.
So is it automatic that they are proceeding to stage 2, phase 2?
Yeah, the whole, all three phases have been approved by commission. So we just gotta write a task order to go to the second phase after they finish this.
So does this stage 1, phase 1, does that get explicitly reported to the commission?
I think we're gonna be reporting to the commission the final findings of the three phases.
Okay.
Omar, I have a question.
Sure.
These wells are not gonna get, I mean, absent some problem in the well that you can solve, the water quality is not gonna get any better. I mean, this is, in other words, I understand that you're looking at each of the wells and thinking that, perhaps we can improve the quality of the water if we improve the wells. But from the reports that you've gotten so far, do you feel that there is significant improvements we can make in the quality of the water by addressing the wells? Or is this the quality of water that we're going to have essentially for the existing water treatment plants and for the new water treatment plant?
We're gonna be able to answer that after we do phase 2. And
Okay.
it is possible that we might find some wells that can have improved. But
And I also noticed there was some discussion of places where you could actually drill a new well or two.
that is correct. They're also gonna look at different areas on the aquifer where you might have a better location for the well. That's part of it.
Excellent. And is this work all considered in the CIP? Is this all scheduled in the CIP? Because I can see that you've scheduled the analysis work. The commission has already approved the 3 phases of the analysis work and the work involved in doing the analysis, like checking the wells. But at some point, there's going to be a bill for whatever the recommendations are. Have you got any idea what magnitude we're talking about and what time frame we're talking about in making those improvements?
We will know until we finish these 3 phases.
All right, so we should be looking forward at some point, give me an estimated time of completion, let's say, for instance, maybe a year from now. We will know how much money we need to spend on improving the wells and maybe even drilling a new well to secure our water. Is that the plan?
That is the plan.
Okay, thank
Actually,
you.
Marilyn, I think I misspoke because now I've looked at my notes. Actually, the main conclusion of the second report, the Chen Moore, was that the source water from the well field is not available in desired colour unit terms. And the CHA Reese report concludes with saying we recommend review the 5 ash replacement plans and consider implementing full split AOP, apparently advanced oxidation process, and BAC, biologically active carbon. And it gives an estimate of costs for 2 options at 5 ash using those processes.
Yeah, Peter, I think that there's 2 things going on here. One is this well field evaluation, okay, which just looks at the wells and what we can do to improve the water that's coming out of the wells. And then given what that water is, what can we do to remove some of the color from the water? Am I reading these 2 separately correctly? I mean, it's 2 studies here.
Yes,
You are correct.
and I got the impression that it was the Reese report,
No.
and I misspoke earlier,
Right.
that is making the recommendations on what process could be implemented at 5 ash, and it gives quite specific capital costs.
Okay, well, go, just, I'm sorry to be
Sorry.
on about this, but can we put aside the well field evaluation report now? I mean, that was about the wells. But
Yes.
then the pilot study was about what are we gonna do right now about the water? Am I reading that correctly?
Correct.
All right, so who's the pilot study? Is the pilot, who's the author of the pilot study?
Reese.
So
Reese.
Reese
So-
did the pilot study. Yeah.
Okay, so what the agenda item is really about is what are the results of the pilot study?
Yes, I agree,
So
Mary.
can we move on to that one? The wells are the wells. We're not gonna do anything about the wells other than clean them and fix them and maybe drill a new one. But that's the water we've got. And how do we use the water we've got in a better way? So what the recommendations that you were speaking of, Peter, is that given the water that we've got, is this what the Reese is recommending to do to get rid of some of the color?
I think there's a technical memorandum, Reese, starts on page 57 of our whole agenda package. And that,
It's page 25 of the report. If you're looking for it, darling, when you're going up and down, it's page 25 of the report.
yes, I think I'm agreeing with you. Let me just get there, Mary.
Right. And whoever's manipulating the screen there, if you could just get to page 25 of that report. It's the last page of that report. There you go. Keep going up to the last page. There you go. Stop. Are we there? We may have actually gone too far. Yeah, because you're on page 98 already. You got to go back to page 25.
It's hard to find. I'm having trouble.
I know I'm definitely, it's hard to find, but she's getting closer. Whoever's manipulating it is getting closer. Don't go down, go up. Up, up, up.
Keep going up.
This is the Reese or CMA report, summary and recommendations. That's 8-17. What it is.
I'm sure you're right, Meredith, but I'm
You
having
wanna show
trouble
what the
finding it as
options are,
well.
right?
Sorry.
If you give me hosting, if you give me the hosting, I'll put it up. I made a screenshot of it. Can you just give me the hosting thing?
Second, now let me see if, IT can do that.
Because this is the crux of the issue here. This is definitely the crux of the issue here.
You're looking for the page that has the two options, right?
Yeah, that's it.
I'm looking for the page that says recommendations. It's page 25 of the report.
Page 4 of 25, what I have here, and it says recommendations. I can read it. Each item, there's 4 different items here.
That's right.
The first item says continue with efforts to optimize the lime softening process and minimize the hydrotreater effluent turbidity carryover.
Right.
The second one says consider testing retrofitting one filter with sand plus granular activated carbon, GAC, to confirm the operability of GAC as a filtration media. Third one, review 5-ash replacement plans and consider implementing full or split AOP-BAC process for either short or long-term color removal for improvement replacement of 5-ash. All shown in tables 1 and 2. And the last one, AOP.
Oh, that's it. It's there.
That's it, yeah.
It's there.
Okay, so
Could you scroll up a bit more so we get the full cost table or down, whichever way it is?
no,
Could we just stop there a minute?
That's it.
Yeah. But I just want to make sure that I'm reading this correctly, that this is the recommendation of the results of the pilot study, not the well field study. This is the pilot study.
That's my understanding as well, Meredith.
Is that your understanding, Omar, as well?
yeah, so this, like the 171 million here is what it would cost to retrofit the existing 5-ash to remove the color. Plus you have the operating, an extra 22 million a year operating cost, and the equivalent annual cost is 33.8 million per year.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. If we were to, I had yellow water once and it was horrible, okay? And you're telling me that we need to spend $171 million and $22 million a year to get that water from that 5-ash plant to not have a yellow color in it. Is that what this report is telling us?
Correct.
And that is one of 2 options.
One of 2. The next option is even more expensive.
Correct.
The next option is significantly more expensive, and I'm assuming it's a significantly cleaner water. Is that right?
Cleaner water, Omar, I think that's correct.
Yeah.
Because it has nano filtration in there as
If
well.
they're saying put nanofiltration where that's the plan that we have. Now,
Well, all I can say is, wow.
yeah, so if you look at the price increase, that's on top of what we pay, what the customer pays for the water. So if you take an average of 12,000 gallons a day, a month, that increased the cost by 50%.
So you're
Wow.
reading the unit water cost table now, and you're saying that should be added to the current water cost? Correct. That's how we're to interpret that.
Yeah.
Well, forget about the actual cost to the consumer. I mean, and don't forget about it, obviously, don't forget about it. Doubling the consumer's water rates to get that water clean. I think people will be shocked to hear this, absolutely shocked.
So
Fine.
Not clean, but with less color.
I'm
The water
I'm-
is clean.
The water is clean. I don't mean to imply that we're not drinking clean water. Less colored water. Thank
Yes.
you, doctor.
Below 5.
Maryland, you need a distiller. They're $159 at Amazon.
How about we buy everybody a filter to put on their faucets to
No, I'm
take out the
serious.
color?
The
Yeah.
distillers, I've used the distiller now for 2 years. I love it.
I mean, guys, I don't know how you feel about it, but I don't see how we can spend the cheaper of them, just the cheaper of them, $171 million dollars to improve a plant that we're going to replace in 5 years. And this is just horrible information for me. I mean, I had no idea. Did anybody else have any idea that we're talking about these sums of money to
Well,
clean the color?
I had an idea we were talking about these sums of money, but I didn't know it came with the caveat that then we're going to replace the whole plant in 5 years. No. So is that a correct interpretation?
That is correct. And another thing to notice here, that this only is for 45 million gallons a day. So if you increase that amount over time, then 10 years from now, if you need to have more water, that's gonna increase it.
So this fairly, if we had by some chance this amount of money, it fairly increases the useful life of the current 5 ash plant. Is that
It
correct?
does not increase the life of the hydro treaters and any of that, any of the equipment that is in place. All the lime treating equipment that's still gonna be as it is. And this is just talking about making improvements to the actual plant, reorganizing equipment, moving stuff, things like that.
So what are you going to do, or is staff going to do with this report now, specifically this one with these conclusions?
I mean, we recognize the need to build a new plant.
Are you going to report this to the commission and along the lines of the general obvious conclusion that Marilyn said, this is totally out of the question?
We have not gone to commission and shown this report.
So the commission is not aware of this. Don't you think they need to be aware of this when they start reviewing the proposals for the new plant? I'm sure you do. That was a rhetorical question.
That is the plan, but
Yeah.
it was released last week from legal.
Right.
So yes, that's our plan. To have this as part of the assessment of the new facility.
Alan, anything to add on that?
Just it's very significant and it does need to be rolled into the bigger discussion of replacing the plant. Remember, if you do this, there's still a lot of other needs at the plant as well to maintain it, to rehab it, to keep it in place going into the future. And that's why the decision as to new plant versus rehabilitation, an old plant, is such a significant one for this commission to make.
Yeah, something to notice here too, this doesn't add anything to, if we have a category 5 hurricane or 4, this does not deal with that at all. So a new facility will, this does not consider.
What happened if we did nothing?
Well, the plan is, it was determined that the life of the plan is pretty much over. So that we need to, we're making improvements right now to keep it operating.
Build the new one, but
If neither one of those spots is,
Jerry?
excuse me, neither one of those spots is relevant. Because if you cannot not do nothing, if you use 3 knots, because the place is gonna fail. It's gotta be maintained. And so minimum in, and this is where I'm remembering the dialogue that we had months ago. There's some large amount of money required to keep the place running until the new one comes online. Putting aside the argumentation, oh, let's keep this one alive forever. You got to spend money to keep it going.
Right.
Question that I have is, to Marilyn's point, these are outrageous sums of money to try to improve the water quality in that meantime. Question I have is this stuff, the equipment and things that are in the 171 or 273 million, fungible in the new plant? In other words, you don't throw it away when the new plant comes online, you put it in the new plant.
Well, this is to, if you do this, you wouldn't be doing the new plant. That's kind of the way we're looking at it.
Well, no. That's a non sequitur. That doesn't flow.
no.
You keep the old one alive until you got the new one running. In the meantime, you put some technology in the old one to clean up the water. Reason we have new friends over there. Make the water better. My question is, all of the stuff you're putting in the old plant to make the water better, higher quality water, no funny colors in the water, all of that. You then move that to the new plant when the new plant comes online.
No.
Oh, well, then.
You cannot reuse this equipment. We're gonna have a different technology. And some of these can be retrofit it to that, but it wouldn't be a good application.
And I presume, but I don't know, that you can't put the new technology in the old plant and then move it to the new plant.
Some of the, if we talk about the arrow that is suggested on option 2, you could probably reuse some of that, but not sure. Because it's looking at water at a different point. It's not treating raw water. It's treating water that comes after the hydro treatment, which is different. Yeah.
Well, you know, it's too bad that out of the 23 acres of the 5-ash water treatment plant site and the current 1954 plant occupies about 4 or 5 acres. It's too bad that we can't use the remaining acreage to build a new plant concurrently with the old one operating, so that if there's any new improvements, it could stay there at the plant. And it'd be a lot easier to transition from the old plant to the new
Yeah,
plant.
but like I'm saying, like the membranes that will be designed for this application might not work on the membranes that we need to use for the new plant. So membranes are complicated in the way the arrow is reversed, and how they're supposed to work to remove organics and inorganics. Those membranes, that system might not be suitable to treat the raw.
It sounds like really what improvements you're able to make and treatment at the well field will have an impact on exactly what the final treatment would be. And so if you're able to use, last time I was saying polymers to precipitate out the rust color and everything. If it's a possibility that you have a good hit at the well field, that your treatment processes on a long-term basis could be made less expensive.
That is correct. I mean, it will just improve the operation cost if we can make some improvements at the well field after the new plant. But yeah, I agree.
Can I ask a question, Omar? The new plant.
Marilyn, just a moment. I think, did you have a question, Roosevelt?
Yeah,
He's had his hand up.
Oh, yeah.
if, when we look at option 1, is everything in option 1 must be done?
That's what Reese is saying, yes, because that's what it takes to lower the color of the water.
And same for option 2.
Correct.
Yeah, well, it'd be better with option 2, better still, option 2. Marilyn?
Yes, Omar, I wanted to ask a question about the new plant. The operating system for the new plant, is it going to be option 2 or option 1?
It's gonna be neither one.
Oh, groovy. Well, that's very interesting. I mean, are we guaranteed that whatever we put in terms of the operating of this new plant is going to also get rid of the color in the water? Because the color is going to be in the water. I don't care what you do. The water coming up is colored.
Because we know that from the well results.
Exactly.
So the new plant will take care of the color, and we're gonna, it will below 5, way below 5.
How do you know what the new plant system is going to be?
We have different options, and all the 3 options that we have will take care of the color.
And what are the 3? I mean, now we move into the
that
process of replacing the plant.
From
So
Carolo's report.
What is that process and what are the options?
From Carolo's report, the recommendation is to do a nanofiltration and ionic exchange. That's the best option.
You said there were 3 options.
There is 3. There is another, I can't remember the other 2 exactly. We use focus on that.
And these are all Corona suggestions?
Yeah, it's on the Corolla report. I believe the other one is nanofiltration and remineralization of the water instead of ionic exchange. And I can't remember the term.
So staff is proceeding as though staff or the consultant is going to design a new plant and put it out to bid, correct?
Correct.
But at the same time, there's a P3 initiative going on. Is that correct?
No. No, Peter, the P3, my understanding is the P3 is only a question of who's going to build the plant, design, build, and operate the plant. It's not in other words, there's no two separate things going on here. The city is not designing and building a new plant, and then we have a P3. The city has accepted from two entities proposals to, in some fashion, get the new plant built and operating. So there's not like two things going on. It's one thing, the way I understand it. Am I correct, Alan?
Well, I believe the city has received 4 proposals. And
Whatever.
At the last meeting, they did, the commission approved to hire a company called Ernst & Young to do an evaluation of those proposals to decide if any of the 4 would be accepted or not.
Isn't Ernst & Young are basically financial? So isn't their analysis going to be financial?
Yeah, they are doing financial, and the staff is doing that.
So what input does staff have to the processes, water treatment processes that are being proposed by the various P3 proposals? Well, you have 4, we're hearing now there are 4 P3 proposals. And you stated earlier that the new plant will be nanotechnology, I think you said. How do we even know that? Because we don't really know what the P3 proposals are, do we?
We know what technologies are being proposed, and the P3 has not been decided yet. If we got not all P3,
but you're saying the technology has been decided.
That we have a recommendation from Carolla on their report.
But has the commission accepted that recommendation?
They look at that report, but they have not accepted that recommendation.
Hold on, Marilyn, Alan's talking.
I'm just saying that, when all of the analysis done and brought to the commission, at that time, they will evaluate it and make decisions as to what they would like. But a lot of these decisions have not been made up to this point in time.
Marilyn?
No, I was just going to say, I think Alan is correct, that a lot of this gets played out through the P3 process, okay? But what I'm concerned about is we now have this report that's telling our residents that absent spending $171 million on a plant that we intend to replace, we're going to have to live with the yellow water for the foreseeable future. Is that what that is? We have to brace ourselves for that. Is that true?
That is true.
Okay.
That appears to be correct, Marilyn. Yeah.
All right. Well, then there was another part of the report that said you were actually going to try a continued pilot program of a filter with the activated carbon in it. Why are we going there? I mean, why are we doing that?
Which one is that? No.
One of the recommendations was to continue with the GAC experiment, with the replacing an entire an entire pump filter system to further analyze whether the GAC was the way to go.
Right. So what that is saying, we have the filters at the end of the plant, which is post-treatment, and they have anthracite on it. So what they're saying is to take that anthracite out of those tanks and put the activated carbon in it to see if there is any problems with clogging, etc. They're just saying that's something, but the fact that the cost to do what we have to do, that's not going to change. They're just saying that might not even be feasible. That's what they're saying.
Yeah, but are they saying that if there's still some hope to get the color out of the water by changing those filters in the end from whatever they are to activated carbon?
No, that's not what they're saying.
Then why are we doing this?
We're not doing it. This is one of the recommendations. That's what they're saying. You can take the anthracite out and put some activated carbon, and hopefully they won't get clogged up, because they probably will. So they're saying just to try it, but we're not doing that. That's not part of this pipe.
You've rejected that recommendation.
We haven't rejected it yet, but we know that we're not gonna be doing it.
So you essentially have rejected that recommendation. Let's get clear here. The recommendation was made and you don't think it's a good idea in your engineering opinion. That's fine. I will defer to you on this. I just want to understand that, all of this angst about GAC is really not happening, is not relevant to what's going on here. There's a bigger picture going on.
That is correct.
Okay.
So the next, Roosevelt, did you want to say something?
No, no,
I'm not.
okay. You got it.
So the next step in the P3 that's public is the retention of Ernst & Young, correct?
That happened at the October 21st.
Oh, that's already happened. They're on board. And then, so when do you think the first opportunity for the public to see the P3s occurs?
I would have to wait and see with the city manager and the city attorney's office. I don't know the timeline as far as going through and doing those evaluations.
Okay. So from the city's perspective,
they expressed to the commission they intend to try and do it quickly, in a matter of a few months possibly, but I don't know if we have committed to a firm date on when that process would be finished, the P3 process.
Okay.
And it would be able to bring it out to the sunshine.
Yeah. But there's definitely 4 proposals now, correct?
Well, the Ernst & Young was for 4 proposals.
Can I ask one last question of Alan on this?
Yes.
Can I assume that the Ernst & Young people are going to be doing a review of the proposals, the P3 proposals, after they're made public or before they're made public?
I would say it's before. It's to help to inform them, so they would have access to them ahead of the public.
So well, let me ask you a question. If they're going to do an analysis of the financials of those proposals, is it just the financials of whether or not these companies have the capability of doing this? Or is it the financials of what they're proposing in terms of the water rates and the all the financial arrangements that the city would have to be being made?
I don't have the entire scope of work. I know that they were retained by the city commission, but I think the scope of work, everything they'll be looking at is contained within that statement of work. So we can go back to the prior commission meeting and pull that up. It was in the document.
Would you be able to get the scope of work for that consultant contract and send it to the members of the commission so we can understand exactly what portion or what part of the financials they're looking at? Because the reason I'm asking this is that the commission, especially Commissioner Moritas, specifically said that she wanted our input on the financial aspects. And so without any information, we won't have anything to give her. And obviously we have to abide by all of the rules of the P3 and the cone of silence, et cetera, et cetera. But the scope of services for the Ernst & Young work, we should be able to see.
Yeah, well, we can send that out.
Thank you.
And incidentally, Marilyn, I think I'm
Yeah.
correct in saying that the ITF is already on record as saying we don't recommend a private ownership of water treatment or some resolution to that effect. It was made a while ago.
Well, we should resend the resolution to all the members of the committee because it didn't say, we said a P3 would be, we could investigate P3, but we did not want 4 things to happen. You never lose control of the asset, the water. In other words, the pumping permit belongs to the city. We don't give that pumping permit to anybody. We don't lose control of the rates and we don't lose control of the quality of the water. So while the quality of our existing water is fine, it meets all the EPA qualities, but it's colored. So we need to be able to control the quality and the price and the asset. And there was another thing which I can't remember, but I think it would behoove us all to relook at that to make sure that we all are, we all remember what happened, and maybe we want to modify that, I don't know. But at that point, that was the recommendation of the group. And given that it's getting to the time when I have to sign off, thank you all for coming, and I have to sign off, and I'll see you at the next meeting. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Bye.
Thank you. I'll leave the chair here for you.
Thank you.
So anything else from members or staff on this? We do have a member of the public who'd like to be heard. No, Mr. Corbyn? Right.
You guys are really misunderstanding what we're talking about. It's the $170 million is instead of building a brand new water treatment plant. This is fixing it up so it can continue running. All right, here's my prepared notes. The 2019 Corolla report has big flaws that were highlighted by the new 2021 Reese pilot study report that just came out a week ago. The Corolla report says ozone can't be used due to bromide levels in source water. The Reese report shows no bromide was detected, so bromide is not a problem and ozone can be used. Second, Corolla says carbon cannot be used due to carbon needing to be changed every few days, costing $130 million per year. Reese says no, twice a year, costing well under $10 million per year instead of $130 million. And then Corolla says biofiltration cannot be used. Reese says it can. Ozone with BAC, which is biofiltration and carbon, will remove 90% of the color, which is what you want. And color is dirt. So when you remove the color, it removes dirt, which lessens the disinfectant byproducts, DBP. Unit cost. Now, there is a third option that you guys didn't show, and that Reese put in their draft report. The third option is building a brand new water treatment plant for $430 million. You're not wasting $170 million. You're saving $260 million. You got to understand this, right? Okay. Unit cost for ozone and BAC, I'm using some draft report numbers, would be about $2.40 per unit. 1 unit's 1,000 gallons. $3.65 per unit using Corolla's method of membrane technology and ion exchange. That's 50% more expensive, okay? And that's, that's after you pay the $430 to build the plant. And it costs $50 million a year to run this Corolla proposed membrane water treatment plant that's mostly an electrical cost. Talk to Pembroke Pines and other people that have it. The committee said they would accept a P3 only if the city could retain control of water bills. This is not possible. Therefore, the committee has said we reject the P3. Corolla has been caught lying in the past, falsifying engineering reports concerning city water products. They were sued by the US government. In Sarasota, they were found to illegally giving gifts to city employees before getting a $9 million contract in Sarasota just a couple of years ago. We cannot rely on the Corolla report without also considering the Reese pilot study. Now, these P3 proposals—
I've given you 3 minutes.
Yeah,
right.
These P3 proposals came out before the Reese pilot study results came out. This is hugely important. I filed a complaint with the Florida Board of Professional Engineers about the Corolla report, and they're considering to do an investigation. Only $65,000 has been spent for Ernst & Young to look at the P3 bids. Tomorrow, the City Commission will vote on paying Ernst & Young $464,000 to consider the unsolicited P3 bids that don't take into consideration the Reese pilot study results. The commission should be told not to throw away this money. The 2021 Reese pilot study should be added to the city website. And currently, please people, our water is not fine because we do 3-week free chlorination burns twice a year. And I had the water tested during these burns.
So please conclude.
I hope I'm not boring you. Because they failed the EPA tests by 6 times for trihalomethanes. This is really important. They have 20 times the chloroform that it should have in our water during these 3-week burns, which you never test for trihalomethanes or haloacidic acids during these burns. Are there any questions?
Comment. So you're really questioning the selected process for the P3.
RO membrane
Yes.
technology. It's not
Which
me.
is why I was asking earlier of staff, how has it been decided what technology would be? So in the light of my question and others and what Mr. Corbyn is saying, is staff certain that the process for treating the water is definitely established at this point?
That's the recommendation from Carol. The different proposals offered different configurations. We need to analyze all that and see. But
So it's possible, and we don't know this, that some of the P3s are proposing a different. Correct. All we know is that the city commission accepted the findings of the Corolla report whenever it was given to them, right? So they're inclined towards, you could say, because they've accepted those findings, they're inclined towards that process, but it's not set in stone yet, right? Any questions, Mr. Corbyn?
I would like to hear staff respond to some of the allegations that were made by Mr. Corbyn when it comes to the 171 million is not repair until, but to repair and keep forever. That's true.
I mean, what this is saying is that you guys spend at least 171 million to the existing plan.
And for the plant to be forever or for until 5 years? Huh?
30 years
No,
is what Reed's based.
No, because some parts of it have only got a few years left of them anyway, and they will continue in existence. So 170 million is not the end of it. The end of it would be replacing everything else as well as this process.
100 million goes towards refurbishing 5-ash to get it up and running to where it should be. 70 million is for this ozone and BAC technology, which will be much cheaper, $40 million cheaper per year to run.
Would you agree with that statement, Omar?
The 100 million is not to replace the whole 5-ash.
I didn't say it was. I'm saying it's refurbishing the parts that need to be done so it can continue to run. You always have to keep adding money to a water treatment plant. And we haven't done that for several years. So we got to play catch up.
But you must accept it's extremely old at this point. So it becomes a point of diminishing returns. Roosevelt?
I guess I'm a little bit confused because I thought we was in the process of accepting bids for a new plant.
We are.
And in the meantime, you're gonna have to spend that either that 171 or the 263 in order to get us to the new plant. And he is saying, no, if they spend the 171, then that's the plant we'll have. There will be no new
We
plant.
don't have to spend the 171 that we've established. That is to take the color out of the water, but there's a difference of opinion on spending 171 million. I think Mr. Corbyn is contending that it basically extends the life. I wouldn't say indefinitely, but for tens of years, decades.
Yes.
Staff is saying that's not actually the case.
And this report is kind of vague.
Yeah.
This is spongy. He's definitive. And they're saying it's not going to last that long.
And what do you think?
Preamble question to that, or prerequisite question. Any of the bids received so far were solicited by the city or they unsolicited?
I believe they're all unsolicited.
Well, the first one was unsolicited, I'm sure.
Yeah,
There was one.
Yeah.
So that's another in the process. If you get an unsolicited bid, somebody's telling you what you should have.
Yeah.
Right? Where's the document where we say, here's what we want?
Well, we have provided the Corolla report with the different options. So they can go there, look at all the water qualities from the raw water.
When you say you've provided it, you mean to the people submitting or the commission are you talking about?
No, the people bidding on the new plan, they have the Corolla report as a basis for the whole thing.
Yeah, but you sent that out before any bid was received, right? Because they need to know what it is that you expect for me to do. And then once I determine what that is, then I will tell you how much I'm gonna charge
It's
you.
possibly
Yeah.
true to say that the people submitting were influenced by the Corolla report, correct?
Well, they're looking at the water quality, and from the water quality and the water requirement as the product water, that's what's spelled out on that report. So they can pick either of the options that are in there, or they can come up with something completely new that we don't know.
Okay, so Ralph, then I'd like to wrap this up.
I would strongly suggest, having been with Broward County for 19 years, a lot of it with dealing with treatment plants, that staff really goes through both reports. And if there's anyone that knows the treatment processes at the 5-ash, it's you all. Need to consider the various options. One, keeping the plant there or upgrading the existing 5-ash plant to continue an increased quality of water. The other option is getting a completely new plant and moving it to the Prospect well field. Hydraulically, that's bad because ideally, you like to have the water treatment plant in the center of your distribution area. You don't want to have your plant in one corner, like basically we have it now with 5-ash, but we don't want to make it worse, moving it 2 or 3 miles or so up, so that the water, time it gets down to the southeast beach area, the longest distance out there, your quality of water is definitely going to be suffering. So, you got to look at it very thoroughly. Make sure that you take in these other parameters. And if you can't build a new plant at the remaining 17 acres at 5-ash, it's got to be fitted in there somehow by improving the existing 5-ash components. And then you have other components around there. That's, to me, from what I know, what I've read in the reports and everything, is the way to go.
So I just remind the committee that the commission is focused a lot on cost and time, and they have had during their tenure, a couple or more successful examples of the private sector providing something which I think has to be admitted was done quicker. Public sector could have achieved. So remember that is the mindset of the current commission. Okay, so having said that, I think for the next meeting, if we could dig out the resolution that we passed many meetings ago on the 5-ash and have that on our agenda.
Why not bring in Ed Talton, the guy that wrote that Reese report? Because we already heard from Lyle Muntz, the guy that wrote the Corolla report, and he was here to answer some of the questions. Bring in Ed Talton from Reese, ask him the question.
Well, I think if any of the members feel strongly that that would be a good idea, so if we discuss the technology again, they're open to suggesting that to the chair. The chair can decide what goes on there. Okay, thank you. Now we're on to unfunded capital projects. Anybody from staff want to talk about that? Do we have any attachment that related to that? I forget. I'm trying to remember, we, some point in the last 3 meetings or so, we had a big list, or we had a list with a huge price tag at the bottom of all the wish list of the commission. You know, some of it was sort of beyond the realms of possibility in the near term. I don't know there's much else we need to discuss on this. Do members have any comments on this exactly?
Nothing burning.
No. Kind of touched on the capital projects under the discussion of the need for capital to replace infrastructure, particularly underground pipework infrastructure, etc. So if nobody wants to bring up any point on this, then we can move on to the bridge master plan. Anybody want to talk about that? Victor?
Yeah, sure. I could talk about that. We last meeting, we did present the bridge infrastructure plan. We talked about the number of bridges that the city has and our approach to managing the bridge repairs. There were some questions about some of the priorities. There was some concerns about the, I guess, terms structurally efficient. Among some of the questions was if those 6 structurally efficient bridges were funded for repair. So I could give you the direct answer is that it really comes down the idea of structurally efficient. If someone is thinking that by saying the word bridge is structurally deficient, that it's going to fall down, that's not the case. By structurally deficient means that there are certain elements of the bridge that, when examined by the professionals, do need different types of treatments or repairs. So there are 6 bridges that have concerns on them, but it's more of a terminology of the engineering involved. But ultimately, we have different repairs that are pending for those bridges, and they are stretched through the number of years. For instance, we have a bridge that crosses the Mills Pond Canal. It's actually an access road. While that is structurally deficient, it doesn't mean that the bridge needs immediate repairs, and that is scheduled out into the future. I believe it's we have that out in, I think, 2025 or so.
25, yes. Now 2025.
Right.
It's been brought forward.
Well, we have other bridges that we're doing some work now on that have, for instance, we've got some work pending on Westlake Drive Bridge as needing repairs. So it's just has to be understood in the terms of the language used, that repairs are done to bridges as they are needed in various ways to increase the useful life of the bridge, or to address immediate concerns that we might have. I think last time we spoke about pending repairs to the Castle Harbor Bridge, which is not even on these plans. So on the original plans, as far as this time frame being, they are scheduled for later in the overall project. So I just want to try to talk a little bit about that. Again, it's it's like you're talking about something that might be obsolete, or, if codes change, you might take a building that maybe, is perfectly fine. But if you looked at it now and said, oh, is it going to handle category 5? Well, or earth parking, well, it might not. So we can say, well, it's structurally deficient. Well, no, because it was built before that code was available. So it's not, structurally deficient from depending on a perspective of examination. That's where it comes down to a lot of these bridges. If there's a bridge that was in such repair that, it's in imminent danger of collapse, we will definitely be, that's addressed. So I just want to understand that structurally deficient is more of a term of the art that the bridge inspectors use while evaluating a bridge.
Yes, and I appreciate getting the list, the summary list, which is very helpful. But I do remember, probably within the last decade, there was a massive interstate bridge that just collapsed with vehicles on it, and lo and behold, it comes out afterwards. That's very structurally deficient. I don't think DOT is in the business of sending up false flags. So I would, speaking personally, I would like to see the city get to a situation where we have 0 bridges rated structurally deficient. And then in this table that you provided, you have the design load rating. There's 3 categories. Does that depend on the number of axles of the vehicle or something? Like 21 tons, 30, 23 tons, 30 tons.
That's a factor. In other words, first off, let me just let everyone know, because you talk about bridge collapses. Every 2 years, the FDOT, there's an inspection program that's done by the FDOT. And all of our bridges are looked at every 2 years. They're fully examined from the top down. We're provided with reports. And that's the basis for actions that we might take to address bridges. So with that process has been done because, I guess, in the past we've all heard of various things through the years where a bridge may have failed. So the inspection process is what's done, and it's done every 2 years to reassure the public that our bridges are not going to be collapsing at any time soon, based upon the information that we get through our 2-year inspection reports. We do have a bridge, Westlake Drive Bridge, that we are moving faster to make repairs on. We are looking at Castle Harbor that we're moving to do repairs to. And these are resulting from inspections that have come up where the inspectors have identified areas of concern that they feel should be addressed sooner than later. So that's why we're doing some of these things. Now talking about bridge loading and talking about axles, there are different ways that an engineer goes about evaluating loading on bridges. And that's the number of different axles that may be crossing, the weight imposed on each axle, and how those also interact with the span of the bridges. So that's all part of the calculation. So to go on any individual bridge would have to be looked at how that individual bridge was rated, how the calculations were done, the spans of that bridge, and that would help determine some of the load ratings on that bridge.
Okay, any questions from members? All I can say personally is it still concerns me, like you have the First Street bridge here. Some have been clearly brought forward between the 2014 plan and currently, but like there's a couple here, First Street.
If I could talk on the First Street Bridge, I apologize to interrupt you, but that particular bridge, while I can't speak specifically for the different load rating, that might be for the different spans of the bridge. Again, I would have to ask our bridge expert on that. I'm not sure if he's on the line. That would be Raymond Nazir. But also to let you know that we've already done repairs to that bridge, and currently it's pending before the FDOT for reevaluation of its structural rating. That's something that there have been information has been provided back to the FDOT, and we're just waiting to have the bridge rating reevaluated.
And what about the Southwest 7th Street Bridge?
So Southwest 7th Bridge, that's currently looked at into the 2024-2028 CIP rounds. That's what we have internally scheduled out there. Again, based upon the reports, the information is that it's something that can be pushed out, and the original report had it out, I believe, a few years beyond that time frame.
All I'm concerned is the words, you've explained it, but the words structurally deficient are frightening to the public, one. And then secondly, if you have to go, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if you had to go to one of these bridges and post a very low weight limit on it, such that, for example, it should not be used by construction equipment, then everybody would point the finger and say, well, you knew this, you've known this is structurally deficient for the last X years and you've done nothing about it. But anyway, you've given us a very full explanation, so I appreciate that. Ralph?
Are there any of those bridges where you found that they are structurally weakened to the point where you've had to reassign or show for an example, 12-ton limit now would be suspect to some kind of problematic, and you may have to limit it to an 8-ton?
So basically, have we reduced load ratings on bridges based upon their conditions? That I could, again, if, is Raymond on the line? I know he was going to be listening in. I will say that there are instances, and again, I'll use Castle Harbor because that I know is active, where we actually have a lane closed as a result of an inspection where there was a definite concern from the structural engineer of one of the bearing points that they felt deserved to have that lane closed. We're going to be doing some repairs so that to that, so we can reinforce that portion and then go ahead and do more work on the bridge. But if Raymond is on the line,
so there's proactive action you've taken. So that's really was my
most importantly, yes, we're very proactive in this program, and what we're doing is we have annual maintenance contracts, and we have our senior engineer this is one of his main focuses is on bridges. And at any one time, we have various bridges underway and under repair within the city. So there's not the city is a proactive approach to these bridges. And
that's good enough for me.
Thank you.
Okay, and no other questions on that. So we can go to the sidewalk master plan. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Hi, I'm Jill Prisley, Chief Engineer. I'm going to walk you through the sidewalks infrastructure slides.
Literally and figuratively?
Yes. Safely, I hope. No tripping now.
There's no tripping hazards on the one you're going to walk us through.
All right, so as you see, the commission priorities are listed there. And our objective to improve the roads, sidewalks, and trails for a safer and walkable community. And back in 2014, the city paid for a consultant to inspect all the sidewalks throughout the city and developed a whole matrix and identified areas based on 5 different categories, category 1 and 2 being most severe. And we'll get to that in the next slide. And developed a whole matrix as well as giving us a total funding cost to repair all these damaged sidewalks. These are just existing sidewalks. And we have a staff assigned to the sidewalk infrastructure of repairing them. 1 dedicated project manager. We have 1 engineering inspector and 1 administrative person. And on the next slide, you'll see pictures of the 5 categories that the Atkins report identified back in 2014. And they inspected 425 miles of sidewalks and over 29,000 locations were identified. Of these 29,000 locations, they may have contained more than 1 of the categories. Sometimes you have a category 1, which is a large vertical displacement. That's when the elevation is separate. And also, it also may have a wide crack where that's like a gap between sidewalks or a gap in the crack. And as you see there, the total of the cost back in 2014 dollars was just over $15 million. Today's dollars, it's about 25 million. The ordinance, if you guys are all familiar with section 25-26, the ordinance of the sidewalk got updated last summer. And until last summer, up until mid-2020, the duty of the property owner whoever owned property adjacent to the sidewalk was responsible for maintaining their sidewalk. And that was as if they were so directed by the commission. Last summer, the duty of the property owner was not then changed and modified so that they notified the city to let us know that they had a damaged sidewalk. And we would then, well, now, as we did in the past, but now when the engineering inspector goes out to the site, they determine if and so it is the city's responsibility to repair the sidewalk. And that applies to about 99% of the cases. Now, if we see a sidewalk out there that there's someone operating a commercial business and is driving commercial vehicles over our city-owned sidewalk, of course, we would then notify the property owner, well, you have these large vehicles and you're damaging our sidewalk and we're not going to pay for you to, repair. We'll ask them to make that repair.
What about a tree?
The tree, depending on what side, if the tree was in the swale, the city was always responsible for repairing the sidewalk. But if the homeowner plants a tree outside of the sidewalk on their property, it is still their responsibility.
The sidewalk.
If it's on the
Roots uplifted.
if this tree is closer to the home,
yeah,
rather than closer to the street. That hasn't changed.
And this program is being funded, correct? I don't think they could make this change to the ordinance without providing some funds for it.
There is funding for the program, probably not enough to change every.
So is it correct to say the list is growing then?
Yes, it is growing. Yes.
I remember about 2010 or 2012, the city had different categories, something like anything like 3 or 3.5 inches difference in there that they would put that as number 1 to be repaired. And then so forth as they became more minimally dangerous as a tripping hazard. There's a lot of them that were caused by the leaking water meters that undermined that. A number of other things. The tree roots seem to be the most annihilating thing for whether we were in the swales, they would come up and uplift the thing, and then you'd have to make sure that people went out there, when the city went out there to repair them, that they got the roots and even put in something to deflect the root to go down so the root wouldn't continue to go uplift the new flag in there.
You're right. We have our annual contractor has those materials available. If we don't remove the tree, we can root prune the roots and then put some barrier. So it's a slower infiltration of.
And don't fight the trees.
Yes.
Did you finish, Jim?
But, excuse me?
Did you finish?
No, I did not. But you had a good segue into this. The slide before, if you can just back up one. And then we'll get to what Ralph was just going into, how our funding and priorities. We have a sidewalk program procedure, and just so everybody knows here, there's 3 ways of how a customer initiates the sidewalk damage complaint. And there's 3 ways. One is their phone number that we advertise throughout all the city resources is 954-828-8000. We also have a Lauderdale app that you can report a damaged location, and also you can also email us at customer service. And then as you see, it gets routed through Public Works Engineering. We assign it to somebody and we research the complaint, and then we go through the same procedure that we just talked about, how the inspector would on site determine whether it's truly the responsibility of the city to repair the damage or the homeowner based on the tree that they planted in their front lawn that caused the damage to the sidewalk. And then we close it out and we update the results to the customer. You can go to the next slide now. Here's an interesting fact at the top. For every $1 million appropriated to this budget, we can repair 3 miles of sidewalk. And last year we had limited funds. as you see, fiscal year 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21. Last year, our funding was really reduced significantly, and that was to do with the balancing of the budget during the COVID shortfall. So we were only able to do 0.05 miles of sidewalk. Well, we had to do as much as we could with that money. And as you see at the bottom, we also prioritize based on commission priorities, which is, like heavy traffic areas, city-owned properties, downtown, the beach, those, and also areas that the commission had identified in several years ago. And as you see in number 2, once we get through the commission priorities, we target all the vertical displacements and we abide by the ADA. And then the second, as you see there on the third, category 2, those are wide cracks. And then lastly, trip and falls. So risk division notifies Public Works Engineering. We have an alleged fall at this location. We immediately go out, investigate, and make the repair. And as you see, over 5 years, the city has appropriated $3.1 million, and we've repaired 9.4 miles of sidewalk. And every year we appropriate $1 million through the budget process. And that concludes our sidewalk program.
So I think this brings us back to the discussion that we had earlier about how a dedicated funding source for infrastructure is needed. Operating budget, because absent that, well, COVID was exceptional. In a crisis financial situation, it's stuff like this that gets cut. We discussed that earlier though. Okay, any questions for Jill?
I think, didn't you have one?
I didn't, but I actually do have. So it looks like it's all mainly repairs for change in elevation, crack, et cetera. Are you looking into ADA ramps at all and replacing technical warnings that are not there to bring that into compliance, or is it more so the major issues like trip?
The ramp areas were also identified. So if it's not necessarily just the changes out vertical or horizontal, it's also the ramps.
Okay.
And we rely on anyone who's walking in the community to let us know if they come across a ramp that's a hazard or and the Atkins report identified the ramp locations too. And that's why, even though they may have said it was it may be one address, and it could fall into 2 or 3 categories. It could be a substandard ADA ramp. It could be the wide crack. It could be also the smaller lip where you catch your little toe, like you stub your toe as you walk up. So yes. And just so you know, most of our repairs are concrete sidewalks. 95% of our repairs are not concrete, and only 5% pavers. So. Yes, we have an annual asphalt contract, and the CDBG grant funded when we're out doing paving the streets. We also upgrade all of the sidewalk infrastructure in that segment and in that area. So it's primarily a street resurfacing program, but we do touch the sidewalk when we're out there and make it all.
7 years have passed since you had this inspection. There's been a lot of sidewalks damaged in that period of time. And when you talk about 15 million versus the 25 million, is that additional work need to be done, or that's inflation?
That was inflation. Of the original 2014, about 40% of the sidewalks have been repaired. Okay. And I would love to take credit for everything, as a city, but a lot of the developers have done those as part of their new projects, or something, the homeowners have done it up until last July 2020. A couple dozen homeowners did, contact the city. They knew we had the best contracted rates, and we gave them an opportunity to pay using our contractor. They would give us a check, for the amount of, sidewalk in front of their home or business, and our contractor would do it for them, and they would just pay for it. So we have 60% left on that list. Right now, we're going through, in between projects, I have an inspection team that goes and visits the sites, and we're kind of updating it internally. And because it is so costly to pay for a consultant to go back out, but I do see the city will have to budget in the next few years another overall comprehensive report for the city. But we see more than what we can fix. So we would.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? So now it's nearly 4:20. We have improvements to the 40-year inspection process, and then we have public works update, water, sewer breaks, financial report, impact fees. How do members feel about bypassing the improvements to the 40-year inspection process? Bring that back to the next meeting.
Yes. We discussed that the last time.
Yeah.
Different proposals.
And then incidentally, I think on the 40-year inspection process, I think the commission had a report from of the outcome of Broward County's working group into that. And they had a discussion on it. I think I only caught part of it. So perhaps when this goes back on the agenda, we could have a copy of the agenda item that went to the City Commission on the Broward County's working group recommendations on the 40-year inspection process, so we can see what the City Commission saw on this.
I met, in fact, one of the commissioners, District 4 had mentioned that I had made a report and had sent it to them. They're saying that they are looking or recommending that they have more frequent inspections.
Yeah.
More especially coastal areas where there's more influence of that. But yeah, they definitely came up with a program for more inspection or recommendation, more inspections.
Okay.
Like a 10-year thing instead of waiting for 40 years.
So if we could put this back on the next agenda, please, hopefully with the commission memo. They saw a few meetings back recently. Update, water and sewer breaks with mapping. Fairly good news, I believe. Any questions on this report? So we had one, we broke the good stretch. We have one force main break in October. Was there much sewage spill? Does anyone know from that? The one sewer break that we had in, so we have one in October. Was that a significant spill?
It's on the map on the next.
Is it?
So it's right at
There's
the
a
top.
number associated with it.
10-5.
Would you be able to talk on that
It's
one?
dated, it's dated right on the top of the next page, just south of the.
Where is it? Jerry?
There's a summary table on the bottom right too.
Oh, it's the federal 6100 North Federal Highway.
Yeah.
And it says the amount somewhere, right? So it was, relatively small, yes.
Right.
That's good.
1,500.
Federal and 62nd, basically, I had
Yes.
taken care of.
Or at least it wasn't tens of thousands.
Yeah.
And what about the water breaks? Anything to be said there? It's getting better, I believe. So keep it up.
Number 2, you've taken care of already.
Number two, the financial report.
Yeah, the young lady gave it, she had to
Oh,
go.
that's right. Yes, yes. Of course. Yeah.
So you got impact fees and usage, that's all.
Impact fees and usage, yes. So we have seen this before. In summary, for the fiscal year, we've collected just under 1.8 million in water expansion fees and just under 1.5 million in sewer expansion fees. And that has been budgeted 1.8 million to the projected C51 reservoir and 900,000 to the new pump station. These aren't, when I first saw these numbers previously, these impact fees are not huge numbers. I sort of half expected with all the development for these to be, higher numbers. So we're not collecting huge amounts of money from this. So this by no means answers our financial problems, but it's useful to see how much is collected and where it's going.
And when we collect it, where is it itemized at?
Say that again.
When I get ready to build my building and you charge me $1, impact fees, sewer, I give you my $1, where do you put it? General revenue, or you put it back in the sewer revenue?
And I don't know to what threshold it requires to accrue, but it should be exactly like Linda told us, it should get appropriated to certain projects. So I take it that the majority of this money that it is said has been collected this year has been appropriated to those projects that are listed.
It will go into the water and sewer fund. It can't be used for general fund or other purposes.
See, I only asked the question so somebody from this end would tell me exactly that.
Good afternoon, folks. Hi, Kim Holcomb here, Business Operations Manager. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Hi, Kim. Go ahead.
Hi, Peter. So to answer your question, sir, the fees as they are collected, they are respectively placed into the water expansion fees for water and the sewer expansion fees for sewer. They are directly deposited into those special accounts specifically for expansion projects.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
And then who decides when to appropriate them to certain projects as spelled out here, where we have those monies?
Yes, sir. So you can see that the water portion has been allocated to and budgeted in the 12564 C51 reservoir project.
Yeah.
And the 900,000 respectively to the new pumping station for Flagler Village. Who determines that is what initially determines that as our management, our director and his team look at what projects are eligible for what meets the test of expansion. And then whether the budget is needed and sufficient for one project or more. What can we use that money for? And it's only for those projects that are expanding the system. So you may recall that Public Works self-prioritizes some of the funding, the water and sewer funding. By self-prioritizing, I mean that it doesn't go to the rest of the city at first to prioritize the CIP funding. Being on the front line, if you will, our director and his executive team know what are those most urgent projects. And then they further know what projects are eligible for this money. So as we request the CIP each year, we allocate those specific funds for the specific eligible projects.
And just hypothetically, I think the reservoir is not a done deal yet. So if hypothetically that didn't proceed, then that would free up that money again for a similar use, but in the category of an expansion project. Right.
Yes, sir, that's correct. I did reach out to Todd Heishu last week, and the reservoir payment will most likely be due in mid to late 2023. So this budgeted funding here is likely to be funded. I'm sorry, 22. I'm sorry, later this year, this fiscal year. So if not later this fiscal year, early in 23.
Okay. Thank you, Kim. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this? So before I entertain a motion to adjourn, let me just thank everybody for coming. Let me particularly thank staff having been on the other end of this. I know these are your favorite activities. I appreciate your patience in answering all their questions. So thank you very much. Tricia?
Yes, sir. You forgot to, well, I forgot to introduce to you. Cindy Palmier, she's gonna be taking over as a staff liaison. So, oh, to the right, unseen, I'm the face to the emails.
Off the face.
You know what you're getting into? Partial face.
How do you pronounce your name, first name?
Simi.
Just like it's written, huh? Okay. I saw that on.
Sounds like the first
on my
name,
computer.
first line of a song.
Yeah.
The first line of a song.
But we all good. We all good and friendly people.
I've watched you before.
Enough said.
I normally don't even talk in these meetings. Right?
You already seen part of the team because I've already seen your name on 3 or 4 emails, so I just internalized that you were on board. Okay, with that said, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much for coming. See you.
Thank you all.
Next month. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
Good meeting, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much.
You did an excellent job.
Thank you.
In fact, I think I want to promote you.
Pay better?
Now you.
You probably hear me on your phone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Still online or did we?
No, it's recorded.
Yes.
Sorry, see me? Thank you.